What's up, guys? Welcome back to Christian Labosco podcast. Today I've got Brandon Story on. Brandon Story has grown to 3,000 followers on Twitter and has coached many to land their first clients and earn money online with copywriting. I'm super honored to have him on as a guest. How are you today, Brandon?
So good, man. Christian, it's awesome to be here. It's an honor. This is my first podcast. Look at that. Christian Labosco. So stoked to be here and just reconnect again. It's been a while since we've had a call. And I just love seeing what you're doing with your podcast and the growth so far. Big names so far already: Jack Moses, Taylor Simmons, Vigo, the Swedish Wonder.
I only reached out to him because you told me to, and now I'm
really
pretty good friends with him. Yeah.
The 15-year-old duo. I guess you're 16 now, though, right?
Yep. As of like 5 days ago.
Yeah. Nice. Man. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on. I'm stoked to talk today.
Yeah. So for those that don't know your story, could you give a little background on how you got into the creator economy, copywriting, and before that?
Yeah. So my traditional tapping into the creator economy story, I got onto Twitter in end of November 2023. So about 7-8 months ago. But my online story starts years ago. So back in 2015, basically almost 10 years ago, I had just got married and I was working at a pizza shop at the time, making like $12 an hour. And all of a sudden, literally the day after my wedding, I wake up and fear just gripped me. And not because I was like, oh no, I'm married. No, my wife's awesome. And I was elated and our wedding was so fun. And I was stoked to be married to her, way out of my league. So locked her in. But then all of a sudden I wake up the next day and something inside me shifted. And it was all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, I have to provide. I have a wife now. We're going to have kids one day. And all of a sudden, I literally woke up the next day, I need to what am I doing working at a pizza shop, making $12 an hour? I was 22 at the time. So props to you for starting to figure this stuff out at 15, 16. And I was like, I gotta get some business books. I gotta figure something else out. This ain't gonna work. And university, I tried it before. I tried going the traditional route right out of high school, and I was just and I didn't take out student loans, and I was just paying for my way through school. And a few months in, I was just what am I doing here? Learning Spanish and this random other class that I'm doing, spending thousands of dollars on what am I doing? And why am I here? And I realized the only reason I was there was because of all the pressure that's put on you when you're growing up, right? From parents and teachers. Go to university, get a degree, get a job, and retire at 65 maybe. But anyways, I was like, what's the other option? Business. Okay, let's see if I can dive into that. So over the next few years, I just started reading business books nonstop, marketing books. But I couldn't really figure it out for a while. So I tried drop shipping, bookkeeping, web development, Facebook marketplace flipping, sales, all these other things. And they just fizzled out time after time, one after the other, until I stumbled across copywriting. And this was now 5 years ago. So I was 25 at the time. And yeah, I came across writing, but I was I didn't really like writing in school and was turned off from it. But I was like, let me just look into it, because I was just done. My wife and I were working at the same job at the time. I was 25, and after years of going from job to job, making average pay, and at this point in time, I chose I'm not going to go the university route. But now all my friends were graduating and getting their masters, and some of them getting their career started. And meanwhile, I'm making average pay. And I was like, holy crap, everybody else is moving forward in life and I'm moving backwards. And our job at the time, it was not a good situation. And we worked at the same place, and my wife was just crumbling. She was just a shell of the person she was, because the job was so toxic. And really hard hours and physical labor. And we would commute for an hour and a half to work every day an hour and a half back. Like 12 hours of our day was just for this job. And we were promised things like being able to work from home. It never happened. And here we were. And I was seeing my wife just falling apart. And me, myself, like thinking like, what am I doing? We eventually wanted to have kids. And I was like, there's no way I'm working 12-hour days and seeing my wife like this happen to her. And then somehow like we're supposed to have kids and have time for them and provide. Like, this isn't working. And we wanted to travel. Our goal was to go travel the world, go to Southeast Asia, go back to Australia where my wife lived for like a year and a half before we got married. And one day we just snapped. And we'd been looking at flights to Australia for like a year or two. And it was December 2018 when we're just like, I think we were at church that day and somebody had just been to Australia and they're like, just book the flight. And we're like, well, we have jobs though. And like all this stuff. And our plan wasn't just to do a 2-week, like typical thing. We wanted to go travel and like live abroad and like go away for months at a time and see the world. So that next day we're just like, yeah, screw it. Click. One-way flight to Australia set to leave in 6 months. And like from that moment, the clock started ticking for me because I was like, yes, freedom. Like we're going. And then I was like, wait, but like I still have a job, so I got to figure this out. So literally, like I didn't know I was gonna do writing. I didn't know copywriting. I didn't know anything. I didn't have anything figured out. All I knew was we're gonna hop on a flight in 6 months, and no matter what, we're not going back to a job. So went back to the drawing board, web development, bookkeeping, all these other things. They all failed. Drop shipping all failed. I was like, well, what about writing? And dove into that and was like, what the heck? Copywriting? Like, what is this? And all like, for some reason, I never thought like someone's behind those commercials on TV and ads on like Facebook and like all this writing, emails, websites. Like, oh yeah, someone's writing that. And then like I just dove into that world and I just decided I'm going all in on this, like no matter what. And I'm going to make it work no matter what. And I'm going to get to full time no matter what. And I'm going to quit this job no matter what. And like, I'm not going to throw in the towel when things get tough, like I have with the other things I tried already. So we did that. So clock was ticking 6 months, dove into copywriting, like invested like $5,000 in my education that first year, bought all the copywriting books, learned Gary Halbert, David Ogilvy, Eugene Schwartz, all the top dogs, bought all the books, read the books every day, bought a bunch of courses, some of them a few $1,000s, and I just went all in. I just immersed myself. I just became obsessed. And from that day forward, like I cut out Netflix. I cut out video games. I cut out even hanging with friends, honestly, for the most part. And I would wake up before my 12-hour day job and write. I would call them power writing sessions, like 5 or 6 a.m. every morning before work. I'd set a timer for 30 or 60 minutes and just write. I'd open up a Google Docs, no agenda, no topic. My rule was I'm not allowed to hit backspace or stop writing, so I just had to free write. And I did that every single day. And every day I was writing like 500 to 1,000 plus words, just doing that. Then I go to work and like hop onto podcasts. So hopefully this can be a source of inspiration for somebody who's trying to get out of their 9 to 5 is listening to your podcast. Because like I needed inspiration. There was not really like coaching and mentoring much 5 years ago. It was all digital courses and just YouTube and just figure it out. I wasn't on Twitter back then. There was no money Twitter as far as I was concerned, like 2018, 2019. It was just kind of starting. And so on my way back from work, podcast again. When I got home, I'd be handwriting sales letters from like the legends from like the 80s and 90s, the top copywriters, going through courses, reading copybooks, and writing samples. And I did that for pretty much every day for 6 weeks. Pretty much all my free time was spent immersed in copy. And at the 6-week mark, I hopped onto Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and landed my first client for a $10 to $20 blog post, like super cheap. But like I didn't care. I remember when I got the order, I was visiting my parents' place at the time with my wife, And I was like screaming like a little schoolgirl. Like I was like running around the house like, like internet money, what the? And I was like running around. They're like, what are you doing, you mental kid? And I just didn't care because I was like, it's real. Like this stuff's real. You can make money online, and like some stranger on the internet just like paid me some money to do a thing. And I was like, oh my goodness. Because I was like, oh, if this guy could pay me $15, like I could make 150 or 1,500 or 150,000 or 1.5 million beyond. So from that moment on, went into copywriting. I specialized into blog posts early on. Later stacked on email copywriting, doing for email copy for e-commerce brands. And yeah, that's been my journey for the past 5 years leading up to Money Twitter, is just freelance copywriting, doing emails and SEO blog writing. And a year after I started, I was, so we eventually went to Australia. I eventually did quit my job. Like 2 weeks after I got my first Fiverr client, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm out. Like it works. Might have jumped the gun a little too early. And then month 7, I didn't make more than $1,000 a month for my first 6 months. It was about month 7 when I hit $5,000. So going from 1 to 5K in like 1 month, a jump. And then next month was like 7,000. And by the time I hit 1 year after I started copywriting, I was making 6 figures.
Wow. It's so fun hearing you
Sorry, it's
tell
a
that story.
long story, but
It's amazing
yeah,
how you remember all of these moments and these like turning points in the journey. It's fun listening to it. It's amazing what like writing on the internet just allows you to quit your job and travel the world when you
yeah,
just think about it like that.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and then diving into Money Twitter and the creator economy stuff. Um, it was last year, so 2023. I landed Beehive as a blog client, so I write for their blog about a year and a half ago or something, and they put me on these creator spotlight blog posts and case studies. So I'd be writing about the guys who are like having success with Beehive. And the first thing that caught my eye about like the Twitter thing was almost every single success story of people who had like built their business on the back of like a Beehive newsletter and products and services. They almost always started with Twitter and building a Twitter audience, like 90% of them plus. Sometimes it was LinkedIn, sometimes it was some other thing, but like almost everyone first started on Twitter, then on the newsletter. So I got to like take interviews with Beehive guys with these creators and like dissect them and turn this into like a thing, a piece of content. So I was like studying these guys without knowing it, and I was like, "What the? Like this is crazy." There's kind of a bit of a formula here. And one day I get one thrown on my desk, not actually because I'm like working remotely in Canada, but they gave me this one piece from a guy named Dakota Robertson. And I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And I'm like, oh, what? He's like, he's Canadian? Oh, that's pretty cool. And then I go through the interview and I'm like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. These other guys, they use Twitter as a vehicle to like build their businesses. This guy made Twitter his business. Like he writes tweets. And I'm like, this just it didn't make any sense to me. As a freelance writer of 5 years who's gone into email and blog posts, like the concept of getting paid big money to write tweets, I was like, I thought Twitter was like on the back burner. It was so confusing to me. And then I'm like, I see his numbers and he's making like 6 figures a month. And then I'm just like, even more. And after writing that, I was like, this is crazy. And what am I doing? I'm still freelance writing after 5 years, which I love, and it's given me all the freedom and the time and the money and being able to provide for my wife. My wife doesn't work anymore; she just watches our kids, and I can provide for a family of 4 and live anywhere, and it's amazing. But then seeing this was like, man, I like teaching. Like maybe I could teach some people, and so that kind of brewed in me for a few months until I eventually was like, yeah, I got to start my newsletter. And so I was first thinking, start a newsletter and just start teaching people copywriting because it's the skill I already have. I don't have to make some business up from scratch. And yeah, so I started a Beehive newsletter, or I was just about to, and then I realized I gotta hop onto top of funnel somewhere here. Where is the best place? Well, yeah, all these Beehive success stories started on Twitter, including the OG Twitter ghostwriter, Dakota Robertson. So I started my account. I had it for years, but I actually got active end of November 2023 and launched my newsletter 10 days later.
Wow. So, how would you say that using Twitter has impacted your business? Like that transition from being a freelance writer to becoming a creator on Twitter?
Yeah, so Twitter has been crazy. Twitter is like, I feel like it's such a hidden gem still, despite the fact that it's growing massively, like 500 million users to like 600 million in just a few months, according to Elon Musk. Um, I think it's just the beginning. I don't even think we've scratched the surface of what's going to happen in a few years. I think it's going to be over a billion within like 2, 3 years users. Um, so starting on Twitter, short form content was brand new to me. Even though I've been a writer for years, writing long form, writing short form is a whole different ballgame, a learning curve. I remember my first post, first couple posts. Uh, I have to confess I was using hashtags, and I was like, "Why are people finding my stuff and liking it?" And like, I put a lot of thought into this. What the heck? And then I realized that's not how this works. And like, oh, you have to actually interact with people. So hopping onto Twitter, I quickly found myself in mining Twitter around the likes of uh, people like Viggo Fredriksson, the Swedish wonder. I quickly got connected with him and saw, whoa, this guy's growing fast. What the heck? He's 15 and it's like Swedish. English isn't even his first language. And yeah, I didn't actually have an offer when I started. All I knew was I just want to teach people how to become freelance copywriters. And so, yeah, Twitter's been um, massive, and it's been kind of an experimentation, like testing grounds, because I didn't have an offer. All I knew was I'm going to help people learn, and coming from that point of view of like, well, I know how to do that because I this was me 5 years ago. So all my posts I was just writing to my past self, and so that started to work, and I started to get followers, and then yeah, I think 10 days in I started my newsletter. So I, the plan was start the newsletter, and I need somewhere to bring people to it, and that's why I hopped on Twitter. So I was very from the beginning like I knew it's going to be Twitter and the newsletter. It's not one or the other, and yeah, um, I grew like pretty fast compared to most new guys. I think I had like 500 followers in 30 days or just under that or something. Quickly launched my newsletter, and um, in terms of like growing my now coaching business, so I still do freelance writing, copywriting, and I also now coach people through Twitter, and that's kind of my creator business, I guess, is actually teaching the skill of copywriting, content writing, all that. And yeah, I first monetized, I think it was February after organically mentoring a guy, and yeah, it kind of took off from there. And I think it was February when I actually like officially monetized, and 3 guys signed up. And ever since then, I've been coaching about 4 guys a month, and yeah, it's been amazing. I think I've been able to land people both through Twitter and the newsletter, and I don't think it's I think it's a 1-2 punch where if you have both of them set up, then you just get more touch points with people, and you get to build a deeper relationship with email, but also like stay in the trenches and like um, on Twitter, and like it's just fun. And yeah, so it's been I think I don't know what is that 5 months or something of also now coaching and being monetized. Yeah, so I think started on Twitter in November, monetized February, 7 months of doing coaching in conjunction with my writing.
Wow. And so that's crazy. This how fast things evolve, especially on Twitter. This what's possible in like 30 days and
Yeah.
90 days. Yeah. Um, Moving over to kind of what you coach, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that, let's say, beginners make with copywriting?
Yeah. Do you want to know advice for like tactical of their copywriting skill, or do you want to know like on their journey to become a full-time freelance copywriter?
Um, Whichever one you feel like you want to answer, but the one that I think may be useful for a lot of people is the tactical copywriting skill.
Hmm. Okay. Maybe I'll touch on both. So I think in terms of like the tactical copywriting skill, I think a lot of mistakes people make is number one, I think they try to sound too academic and their grade level is still way too high when they're writing. And I think a lot of that problem comes from like school. And as you go through high school, you're learning to become a more complex writer and write longer paragraphs and longer essays and fancier words and all this academic and literature style writing. But the reality is nobody talks like this or reads like this in real life. If you open up a newspaper, the average newspaper is at a fifth grade level, and the best copywriting is also at a fifth grade level. So I think the first thing people have to learn is actually unlearning what they learned in school and dumbing down their writing. And that means, in most cases, shorter paragraphs, shorter sentences, shorter words, simpler words. A really good tool to use for anybody, whether you're writing tweets, blog posts, emails, is Hemingway app. It's free. You can go to hemingwayapp.com and just take your copy every time you're going through the editing phase. So once you've written your first draft of copy, and just copy and paste it, plug it into Hemingway, and it'll give you a grade level. And so most of the time, usually people's problems are their grade level's too high, which means it's complicated. And if it's complicated, one rule of copy is if you confuse, you lose. So if people start stumbling over your words, and if it's too high of a grade level, you're just going to lose conversions, and you're going to lose people along the way, and they'll just tap out. So use Hemingway app, copy and paste it into the app, and it'll give you tips on like how to reduce it. So it'll like highlight certain sentences that are too long, too complicated, and it'll tell you your grade level. So the goal, it's just think of it like a game. Like it's a gamification of editing. Take your grade level from a 12 to a 5. Just start implementing the tips. And I would recommend doing that for the first like month or two, at least, as a new writer. You can still use it like if you want going past that, but eventually as you keep practicing writing, you're naturally going to start writing simpler and easier. It just comes with time. So that's the first thing, is make your writing more simple and a lower grade level. The second thing is pretty related to that, and I think people are, when they start either as a freelance copywriter or in any online business, I think we want to try to sound super unique and creative. And I think it actually hurts us at the cost of being confusing. And I think a lot of new writers think like, oh, I need to come up with the big idea as a copywriter and like formulate on this for like weeks at a time to figure out like the perfect headline. And it's got to be like the next big thing or whatever. And I think it's hurting most copywriters because they're trying to sound too unique and creative. And I think the best copy is just simple and clear copy. And in most cases, just telling people straight up, like, here's what the thing is. Do you want it? Is a better route to go than like, I gave this example the other day on a post where like sometimes like software companies on their websites will be like, we have this like intuitive new like synergistic interface to like help you connect or something. And it's like, what the heck does that mean? When like, a platform could just be like, we'll just say a Twitter coaching offer. We'll just say um, like get 500 clients in 30 days with my coaching, or 500 followers in 30 days with my coaching. Something like that, where it's like, oh, this is what I get for the thing. Like, it's just
Yeah,
very
make the
clear and
benefit
simple.
clear. Yeah.
Just make it very clear. Just like, here's the thing you get, and here's the time frame. Or like, yeah, simple Twitter growth, easy Twitter growth. Get 500 followers in 30 days. Sign up for my coaching. It's like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to get. Like, there's no confusing, like fancy language. And so, I think that's the second thing. So, dumb down your writing, bring your grade level down to a grade 5, and simplify and make your copy extremely clear. And it's better to be extremely clear at the risk of being too boring or simple or whatever, than to be too fancy and confuse people. I think those are the two biggest things in terms of like tactics. In terms of like a third one isn't so much a mistake, but I think solution to overcome writer's block as a copywriter. And I think this one is like the easiest thing that every copywriter should do when they're first starting, and it's to use frameworks like AIDA. So attention, interest, desire, action. My favorite's problem, agitate, solution, PAS. And if you don't know where to start with your copy, like obviously you should know your research and like pain points and problems and the product. That stuff you should already know. But then once it gets time to actually writing, just start by writing down problem as a headline, a sub-headline in your Google Docs, and leave some space. Then write agitate and leave some space. Then write solution, leave some space. Now you can, instead of like thinking, oh no, I got to write this there's a huge blank empty page here. Just take one section at a time. What's the problem? And if you don't know, start diving into the start writing bullet points of the problems your target audience is dealing with. For instance, if it's Twitter growth or personal branding, like they don't know how to like be a brand. They don't know how to write. They don't know how to grow. Like they want to make money, but they don't know how. Maybe they are stuck in school or dead-end jobs. They have no time. Here's some problems they're dealing with. And then like agitate would be like dive into an imaginary scenario of somebody and paint a picture. You wake up and like, I could do this because I live this life. Like you wake up like to your alarm again, dreading not wanting to roll over out of your bed. So like you hit the snooze button again. But that daunting like fear comes over you, like if I don't get out of bed, like I'm not gonna be able to pay the bills anymore and provide for my wife. So I dreadly walk over to my coffee machine and like make another black cup of coffee, hop on a commute, and like look at the dreadful faces on their way to work too. And like just paint a picture of the life of like what the problem is that the person wants to get out of. And tell a story if you can. And then go into solution where you start talking about, do you not want to like drive on crappy commutes for an hour to work anymore or to a job you hate and like build someone else's dream, or do you want to build your own? Because there's another way. And here's the way. Sign up for my coaching. Boom, 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 whatever. But yeah, use frameworks. It'll help you a ton. It's not like training wheels where like it shouldn't be seen as something that is diminishing you. Use it as a tool because it's going to help you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you were going to touch on something about something besides mistakes, or something with mistakes having to do with the journey to becoming a
Yeah.
freelance writer.
Yeah. There's a lot. So I actually probably talk more about the strategy and like helping people navigate the journey of becoming a freelance copywriter more than the actual tactics of copy, which I'm going to start leaning more into that. But in terms of the journey to become a full-time copywriter or a six-figure copywriter, there are so many mistakes people are making, and it's hindering their progress. And it's also it's causing unnecessary amounts of waiting time and frustration that I think a lot of people just burn out and give up because they don't see progress quickly. And so there's a few tips I have for people who are new, who are starting out on the journey to become a freelance ghostwriter or copywriter. Number one, like you got to write every single day. Like it's just, there's no way around it that if you aren't writing at least for 30 to 60 minutes a day, you're not going to get good enough to be able to land clients. Like somebody on the other end of this transaction one day is going to be the person handing you thousands of dollars. So like build $1,000 plus skill set. Like you have to just put in the hours, just like any other skill. And I think people are trying to get around that by, people who are trying to actively become a freelance copywriter or ghostwriter, they're trying to skip that by writing maybe one or two tweets, short form tweets a day, thinking they got their writing in, and then they just engage. If they're trying to pursue freelance copywriting, that's not going to cut it. Like you actually have to spend your time in the craft and getting the reps. Like the first 6 weeks till I landed my first client, I was writing like 3 hours a day. I would wake up before my job and write for 30 to 60 minutes just right out of the gate. I would be handwriting sales letters at night, and then writing other samples of copy through courses I was taking. So I was writing a ton. And the thing to keep in mind though is like you don't need to write for thousands of writing hours in order to be good enough to get to full time. You just need to be good enough to get hired. You just need to be better than the business at writing copy. And so I look back and I think I probably got like 100 writing hours in, um, maybe a little bit more than that before I landed my first client. And it's like, if you do 3 hours a day for about a month, you'll get your 100 hours in. Now, if you try to do that like 15 minutes a day, it's going to take you months and months in order to build up the same level of skill as someone going that hard and like just spending that much time in the craft. So just getting that writing in every single day, no matter what, is crucial, even if it's for 20, 30 minutes. Like just writing on anything. The second thing is people aren't, and this is my opinion in terms of being a freelance copywriter and content writer, is specializing and niching down. If you're going to pursue freelance writing, the fastest way to land a client and to get to full time is to just own a lane. Years ago, I read the book Positioning by Al Ries and Jack Trout, and they talked about the idea of like owning a lane in the market and how, you know, Coca-Cola, when they came out, they were the top soda brand, this top cola. And when Pepsi came on the scene, Pepsi, in order to gain market share, couldn't just say, we're the top, we're the number one, we're the original cola, we're the best. They had to say something different, and they had to go after a different lane. And so they said, we're the new and the young and the hip. And by saying a different message, they knew they couldn't say, we're number one, just buy us. They chose to say the different message and go into a different lane and a different subset of the market. And that is what allowed them to level up to get to the number two spot. And so going in as a copywriter, and instead of just generalizing saying, I can write any kind of copy in any industry or niche, go pick one. Go become the email guy and go in finance or fitness or cats. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Ideally, you have some interest in it. But if you build up a specific portfolio with a specific type of writing in a specific industry, and if that industry and that lane is big enough that there's demand and there's money there, when you approach somebody with that hyper specialized portfolio and you reach out to them, you'll land them over the person who has, every other copywriter who has random samples of copy in different niches. And so it's just faster to get that first client that way. And I think it's easier over time to start broadening, like once you have the ball rolling and getting that going. The third thing, and this one's major, is proof. People are trying to land clients without proof, and they'll go and someone tells them, just if you cold DM or cold email enough people, you're going to land someone eventually, which is true to some degree. But nobody's going to hire a new copywriter if they can't prove they know how to write. So stacking up proof in any way you can, getting testimonials, samples, results, reaching out to friends, family, and coworkers, doing free work, cheap work, whatever you can do to get proof that you know what you're doing. Starting your own Twitter account, starting your own newsletter, becoming a living case study, even that's proof. Like that works. But do something and prove you're someone worth hiring for thousands of dollars. And be willing to work for free for clients if necessary. Just like Alex Hormozy, he took 5 when he was his first business, fitness coach or whatever, fitness trainer. He took 5 guys for free for 3 months, worked with them like nonstop. And he did their diets, their fitness plan, met with them weekly. All these things kept them accountable. And at the end of the 12 weeks, he said, if you like this, now start paying me. And they all did. They all did. And he got to full time instantly in 3 months. And so this guy, listen to this guy who's making $200 million a year and is going to be a billionaire soon. And if he's saying like work for free to build proof, to get the ball rolling, then do it because it works.
Yeah, it's that I think it's just a lot of people, especially even those people that don't have to earn money right away or don't have the pressure, they don't have the sort of ability to delay the gratification of working for free. And I think there's something from Alex Hormozy where people are like, I'm worth more than that. And he's like, if you were worth more than that, then people would be paying you.
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
huge.
people saying that like they're worth more than free work, but if they're not getting paid that, then you're not worth it because the market doesn't think that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely agree with the free work, and that's something I've been doing is just brand consultation calls because that's something I like anyway. But it's also because you just get testimonials and also experience.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I remember when I was first starting, um, like when I finally formalized my coaching offer, or at least when I was like, this is the thing I'm going to be doing to monetize, is I'll coach people and mentor them. And on my journey to actually get like launching a paid offer, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just hop on some free calls first, and like I'll just help people for free. Both because like one, I need to figure out how to actually do this like coaching thing, um, and like by just hopping on another call every day, I would be gaining in my skills of doing that. But two, yeah, testimonials, like getting that from people, even helping them for free, it's worth so much. Like people don't understand the power of social proof and how powerful it is. And just being able to have somebody who can endorse you or give you a review or a testimonial, and like that is like fuel on your entrepreneurial journey, no matter what you go into. So yeah, that's so good you're doing that now. That's gonna be huge for you.
Yeah. In one of your lead magnets, you talked about the three types of outreach. Do you could give like a brief summary of them and then your favorite of the three for a beginner?
Yeah, so I'll say this. There's a million ways to land a freelance client, whether you're a writer or anything. There's so many paths to do it. Uh, Believe it or not, inbound leads is not the only way on Twitter. A great way to do it, don't get me wrong, but there are so many ways to do it, especially, and I think especially early on, if you're trying to monetize quickly, no matter what you're doing, coaching, writing, whatever, you got to do outreach. If your goal is like, I need to monetize as fast as possible, inbounds like planting a garden. It's like these things take time. You just sow in and sow like day in and day out and tend to that garden. But like you can go and like find fruit trees or whatever out there. If you that the fruit's already ripe, ready to go. If you find a garden, like they're going to be there. Might take some work. But there's a few different outreach methods that I like the most, especially if you're new, starting out. Number one, I call it hot outreach, and it's not on Twitter and it's not even on the internet. And it's going to your friends and family and coworkers and pulling out your smartphone, not opening up Twitter, but instead opening up your contact list in your phone. Look at every single person you know. Go through the list in your phone and ask yourself, does this person have a business? If they do, mark them down on a list. Go through the whole thing. Think of everybody. Go to your personal social media. Go to your followers who you have on there, and just ask yourself, do any of these people have businesses? Take a note of everybody you know, friends, family, coworkers, old teacher, like anything, and go reach out to every single one of those people. And I guarantee you probably have at least 20 people, like 10 to 20 people you could reach out to and go offer your services to them. And if you are scared to try to pitch them or whatever, then go do it for free and go ahead of time, look at their websites or their socials, whatever your specialty is ideally, if it's emails or tweets or blogs, and go write a free audit, give them a bunch of tips, just give them a bunch of tips. And then if you want to take to the next level, write a free sample for them and just give it to them. Be like, hey, so and so, it's been a while, XYZ, catch up with them. Hey, by the way, you run this business, right? Oh yeah, I do. Hey, that's so cool. Oh, I actually just checked it out, and like, dude, there's a ton of stuff you could be doing to like get more clients or more followers or more leads. Like, here's all the things you should be doing. Boom, 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 boom. I'm actually in like digital marketing, or I'm in email now, or in this. Say whatever the thing is, so they know why they should listen to you. And like, if you do all these things, you'll get more conversions. And by the way, here's a free sample. Like, you can use this for your site, and just go give it to them and see where the conversation goes. Uh, at a minimum, if they remotely trust you or like you, they'll be like, oh, wow, thanks. Like, this is awesome. Ask for a testimonial, ask for a review, ask for to put the sample live on a portfolio. Get them to put it on their website or their social media, like your work that you just gave them. If they say, hey, this is great. Actually, I could use some work like this. I just can't afford you. Go do this stuff for free. Go build a case study. Like, it's so much easier. It's literally 100 times easier to land a client offline who you already know, the person you already know and trust and likes you, than turning strangers into friends quickly online. If people have known you for years, you've built out so much trust up here that can make up for your lack of experience down here. Like, I had a real estate agent friend who he was just my friend, and he became a real estate agent. And I had a few people in mind for, like, if I was looking to buy or sell a property, who, like, oh, these are the people I'd probably reach out to. Well, the moment one of my good friends became a real estate agent, it was like, if I'm buying or selling, 100% I'm going to him. And I don't care how good he is. I just know him and like him and trust him, and he's a good friend. So, like, it doesn't matter if these guys maybe are better or have been doing it for years. My trust in this guy is up here, and, like, he's the guy I would go to. So lean into that hot outreach. Sometimes you might land a paid client right away. Sometimes that could lean into referrals. A graphic designer friend of mine, she started graphic design and she asked around, hot outreach. And this is like 2 years ago. She landed her husband's uncle. Oh, he was in real estate actually. And from that, she's worked with him for 2 years now, paid from the start. And he has directly referred her to like 3 or 4 people. She got to full time as a graphic designer completely offline, just local people she knew. And now she's going online to build herself out more. So, like, one person could spread and get your referrals, case studies, testimonials. That's number one, hot outreach. Number 2 is warm leads. And I think Twitter is the perfect place to do this. I think building up your Twitter and making friends, posting authority content, proving that you know what you're talking about in one lane as a writer. Give writing tips every day. Showcase that you know what you're talking about. Teach people. Teach your ideal client. And then engage with people. Find out who your ICP is, your target audience. Hit them up in the DMs. I think you should make friends first. Start a conversation. I don't think you should cold DM. I think it works. It's just not my favorite. I think warm and connecting and building network and connections with people is faster and easier and less scary, honestly. So hit them up in the DMs and do the same strategy. Go befriend them. Once they reply to you, they're a warm lead. You just turn the stranger into a friend. And then go do the same thing. Look at their website, audit, write them a sample, give the stuff. Become a person of value. Don't just ask. If you give and you are just come from a place of helping people first, you're gonna land clients. And the same thing, if they say no, referrals, testimonials. Hey, do you know anybody else who could use this? Like, I'd love a referral. And eventually you're gonna land clients. That's the primary way my mentorship students are landing clients. Warm outreach in the DMs on Twitter and other social platforms. Number 3 is so not talked about on Twitter, but it's freelance marketplaces, like places like Upwork and Fiverr. I think these places get a bad rap because they're known as like the cheap, dirty areas of the like online money-making space or something. But like, there's literally like, I think it's like 5 million businesses who use Upwork. And every day on Upwork, there's like thousands of job listings and contract opportunities for writers, designers, like marketers, anything, social media. The cool thing is people are literally, it's business owners out there saying, hey, I need a Twitter ghostwriter. Like, I have in finance. I'll pay you $1,000 a month. And they're putting offers out there. So like Gary Halbert, my favorite copywriter of all time, he's like the Michael Jordan of copy. He said like the number one strategy to sell a product or service is to go find a starving crowd. And like Upwork, I think, is like the starving crowd where people are saying, hey, I need this thing. I'll pay this much money. Who wants to do it? And I think if you can, like, for me, I started on Fiverr, and they're similar places. Those are the top 2, I'd say. And if you're new, be willing to do the cheap work. Be willing to do stuff that's, just to get your name out there and work experience, and to gain the confidence to go land that guy in the Twitter DMs or pitch that guy who's like a creator for a few $1,000s a month. Like getting that early experience and landing those clients through freelance platforms, such a good way to just get your feet wet and like get off the ground, take flight. And yeah, Upwork. Like if I was starting over, I'd be on Upwork every single day and I'd be in warm DMs every single day after I pitched all my friends and family in real life. Like this is my exactly what I do. Like I'd go to all my friends and family from day one, coworkers, anything, people in real life. I'd go do free work for them and cheap work. Then I'd go on to Upwork every single day, check every day. And after I check Upwork for listings, for writing positions and writing contracts, I'd be hitting up the warm DMs on Twitter and reaching out to people nonstop, engaging with their stuff, networking, and making friends and clients.
Yeah, that's so much value in what you just said there. And yeah, make friends, not followers, as
Yeah,
Vigo's tagline was.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, the family one I definitely think is something that people overlook, that they have a bunch of leads like right in their phone that they don't even need to really do anything for. Um what since you've grown a pretty big personal brand so far, 3,000 followers, what were your suggestion to beginners wanting to grow a personal brand?
Yeah, so in terms of building a personal brand, it all depends on what your goals are. But I would say if your goal is to build a personal brand, pretty much you probably want to be able to like have more freedom, have more time, build a business that revolves around your life and make more money. Um, Pretty good chances that's what you want to do, and work on things that you love versus like having to build someone else's kingdom offline. I would say if that's your goal, there's two paths you can go down, and the first one is what basically I'm teaching primarily, and that's to like basically start freelancing, build a skill, offer it as a service in the form of like freelance writing, copywriting, content writing, Twitter ghostwriting. It could be graphic design, programming, video editing, all that stuff, sales even. If your goal is to make money as fast as possible, go the freelance route, build a skill, offer it as a service. And I would say think of Twitter as the place where you should primarily start outreaching and spend 80 to 90% of your time on there outreaching and 10% ish on focusing on inbound leads. So like if you're going to try to land clients fast and make money fast, then use Twitter as your primary outreach method besides like Upwork and offline stuff. And so if your goal is quick, go pick a skill, master it, immerse yourself in it, and go build up a case studies as quickly as possible to offer that. If, however, you can be patient and you don't need to necessarily make a ton of money or whatever in the next 6 to 12 months, then I would say the other alternative is to just build your own audience and eventually offer. There's tons of ways you can monetize it, but you can actually skip the freelance route if you don't have the pressure, if you're patient. And so if you don't need to do this for the next 6 to 12 months, then go like just have fun and experiment. So I would say still build skills, but not necessarily to land a direct client with that. For instance, Christian, you're building the skill of speaking and podcasting. Like that is insanely valuable. Being able to both like speak, be able to be on camera, be able to like interview and like build those connections, to be able to build an audience on Twitter and on YouTube. Are you on Spotify too or somewhere else?
Yeah, on Spotify, and I plan to figure out how to
Okay,
post everywhere.
nice. Yeah. And your newsletter. Like building a skill, even just to build your audience and provide value to them, especially a communication skill like writing or speaking or both, massive. That has massive upside. And I'd say that like in terms of building a personal brand, if you aren't sure what to do, just get around people you want to be like. And like look at other people. You know, most people on Money Twitter are here because of they saw probably a Dan Coe video. If you want to live Dan Coe's life, go spend time to consuming his content and start following in his footsteps. If you want to live Dakota Robertson's life, same deal. If you want to live Matt Gray or whoever, go just do what they do. And I would say don't put too much pressure on yourself to to have to like pick one specific niche or whatever. I think it's beneficial, but I think you also like just get in the habit of posting content and picking one skill. I think is more important than putting the pressure on like knowing exactly all 25,000 steps you need to do. Like pick one platform, pick one skill to learn, and start posting regularly, and then connect. In terms of growth, like I think you're going to grow faster if you pick one thing and start building authority in that space. Like for you, you're connecting with other creators and other people with their personal brands, and people love that. There's a massive demand for that. People are here to learn and grow, and you chose a lane where there's actually not a whole lot of people like podcasting. So naturally, like you get to leverage other people's audiences, and also like you're solving a huge problem right now, and which is like the audio content. We have the short form stuff on Twitter and stuff like that, but we don't have a lot of like audio or podcasts, especially in this space. And so, yeah, if your plans to grow fast, I think picking a niche, like posting consistently, engaging like crazy. People, I don't like. I remember hearing a Dakota Robertson podcast. He was talking about his early growth, which, by the way, Wrongs to Right is not his first Twitter account. For anyone who doesn't know that, he actually started one before that, and he failed at it, or at least that's what he'd say. He started like a Stoic philosophy whatever account, and he wasn't really growing, and he wasn't really he was like, how am I supposed to monetize this? And he didn't know. He pivoted. It's okay to pivot, but like, how did he start growing eventually? It's when he talked to his buddy who's growing faster than him, when he was on Wrongs to Right now, his new account, and his buddy's like, oh yeah, so I do this and this and this, and I comment 100 times a day, and da 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 da. And Dakota's like, what did you just say? He's like, yeah, I do this and I comment 100 times, and then I do this. And Dakota's like, oh, I comment like 20 times. He's like, oh. And Dakota's like, oh, this guy's growing fast and this is something he does. I guess I'll do that too. And next thing you know, Dakota Robertson hit like 1,000 followers in 45 days or something. And now he has a Twitter following of 260,000 or whatever. And I think like don't underestimate the power of engaging and building connections. I think it's equally as important, if not more, than your content itself to some degree. Because as long as you're posting regularly, you're going to get better. Your writing's going to get better. Your tweets are going to get better. Like as long as you're like actively trying to improve. But the fuel that's going to like supercharge you is getting around other people, both in terms of engaging, literally just commenting, DMing new people, but also like hopping on calls like this and connecting and building those connections. If you get around people who are growing fast, you're going to grow fast. That's just how it works, like in anything in life. So, yeah, I have a lot of tips on like the personal branding stuff, but yeah, that's the main thing I'd say is just like you have to engage and you have to network, and that's how you're going to grow fast. I've done over like in terms of engagement, I've done 100 plus comments a day since day one on average. Not every day,
Wow.
but yeah. And why did I start doing that? Because I listened to people like Dan Coe and Dakota Robertson, and I looked at other people like people who are growing fast, like Audrey Lowe and other accounts. Socialblade.com. If you want to see how fast someone's growing, including yourself, socialblade.com. You can see any social media, any account, and how fast they're growing in the past 30 days. How many people they're following, how many people are following them, how many posts they're making. I saw Audrey Lowe was doing 100 plus comments a day. I was like, oh, Dakota said to do it. She said to do it. She's doing it. Me and Vigo were talking about that. Like, oh, that's interesting. So then I started doing it, and then I started growing fast.
Yeah.
So it's pretty simple.
Yeah. It's just you have to be consistent. It's just the biggest
100%.
thing. Yeah.
100%.
Sort of going back to the case study, how would you recommend building a case study and getting inbounds from that with Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about building one if you get a result for a client, and then how do you leverage Twitter to get inbounds with that case study?
Yeah. So as soon as you're able to, like, I think no matter what path you go down, like if you're going to be a freelance copywriter, and no matter what, like you should be on Twitter and you should start a newsletter quick. Um, Knowing that you're building that kind of out for the long term, but and go primarily in outreach. Most of your time spent outreaching with 10 to 20% on Twitter and the newsletter. In order, the moment you have one result, you have one testimonial, you have any proof, post that on Twitter. Post it all. Get that case study out there and put it as your pin post. As fast as you humanly can, get a case study on your pin post, because case studies is what makes you money on Twitter. When you can prove that you got results for somebody, whether it's freelance writing or for coaching or anything. I got my first coaching clients technically after I posted my first case study for coaching somebody. So I got my, like when I officially launched it, the thing that actually made it happen was when I started posting, here's the results I got for this guy, and here's what happened. And then he landed some clients. Do you want some help, extra help? DM me. And then it went from there, free coaching call and talk mentorship and stuff like that. So in terms of like the tactical, like you as like if you want to get the most out of your Twitter and not just twiddle your thumbs, you want to actually land clients, whether it's writing or anything, then do whatever you can to get a free client. Friends, family, coworkers, Upwork, like cheap clients, like it doesn't matter. Free stuff in the DMs and Twitter. Whatever you can to get someone for free for the purpose of building a case study. And a case study includes the sample of your writing. It shows what the result is that you got for the person, and it shows a testimonial from that person talking about how you got them that result. That's a case study. And in terms of formatting that, make a tweet that says this. So and so was, or if you could lead with a headline that says like the exact result they got. Bob generated 20% of revenue in 30 days, or Bob generated an extra $3,000 in 30 days. Here's how. I worked with Bob and I did writing for him. He was dealing with this problem, this problem, this problem. Then we worked on this, this, this. He found me and we worked on this, this, this. And now he result 1, 2, 3. And then link to a testimonial, post a picture of a testimonial, or post a video of him. Ideally, video is even more powerful. 10 times more powerful. You can get a video testimonial of that person sharing. Yeah, I worked with Christian and he coached me, and now my Twitter is growing faster and XYZ. Hire him. Like literally just somebody saying that, like that is gold. Like you can post as much stuff as you want on Twitter, but until you start posting case studies, like case studies are like, it's like just rocket fuel on the fire of acquisition through inbounds. Make your case study your pin tweet and post as much proof as you can consistently. And so like every time, whether you write for someone for free or you write for someone for cheap or whatever, always ask for a testimonial. Always ask to put that on as a live portfolio piece. Always ask to turn this into a case study, and then always ask for referrals too. Using that and posting those kinds of things on Twitter regularly, you will land clients. Because at the end of the day, people don't wake up and say like, "Oh, I just have to have a writer in my life today." You know what the business owners think? I want to make more money today and grow my business. So when you start showing them the proof that you can grow businesses through your writing, you can generate more followers, you can get impressions, you can generate leads, you can build email lists, you can nurture people, you can convert people into paid clients, and all that you can attract, nurture, and convert. If you can prove you can do that, and writing's the mechanism, you're going to land clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so useful. I'm going to re-listen to that because that's sort of what I'm on my next step is learning how to construct a case study, because I've seen it work for so many people where they'll post it. I know Harry Beadle, his pinned tweet is a case study, and that blew up. I can't imagine how many inbounds he got from that. But yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah, he probably got plenty.
Yeah. Um, as we come to the end, if you could have the audience only have one takeaway after listening, what would it be?
Oh man, are we already at the end?
Yeah, hour
Man,
in.
oh, this felt like it was like 15 minutes. Crazy. Yeah. So one takeaway, I would say, more than anything, whether you want to go into like freelance writing and you want to make money quick, or you want to, skip over that and go the audience building route, and you're able to be patient and not make money for a while, but build a lasting brand. No matter which path you go down, the most important thing is to just surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, even if you don't know exactly where you want to be yet. Just start getting around people more. And I think that's the best thing about Money Twitter is the fact that there's like, I wish I had this 5 years ago when I first started. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a coach. It wasn't really a thing back then. Money Twitter wasn't really around back then, and I wasn't on Twitter. I the reason I think became, I landed my first client quickly in 6 weeks, and I got to, became a six-figure writer in a year. I think the main reason is because I took all these books and I took all these courses and I went on YouTube and I did all these things, and I made these people my mentors. I made Gary Halbert in the book my mentor. I made Neville Medora on YouTube my mentor. I made these people, these courses, Chase Diamond, Andre Chaperone on the email side of things. I made them my mentor, and I didn't have people around me. I had nobody, none of my friends from high school, none of them had a clue about online business, nor a desire. Anytime I'd even bring it up, it was just like, they just didn't get it. So I didn't have anybody. So I made these people who had gone before me. I found out where the successful people were, and I got around them, whether it was through a book or a course. More than anything, just spend time with those people. Go on Twitter, follow them, go on YouTube, get on Christian's podcast, and subscribe and hit the notification. Like, if you surround yourself with people who are even just a couple steps ahead of you, you know, like Christian, and start, what is it, 12 podcasts you've done already?
Yeah,
13?
yeah. I think
Doing
this
that.
is 14th now.
Okay, there we go. Boom. What the? That's crazy. You've already done that many. People who are a couple steps ahead of you and who have figured out a couple steps ahead, like Christian, or someone who's like light years ahead, like Dan Coe or Matt Gray or Dakota Robertson or Alex Hormozy. Spend time with those people however you can.
Yep.
Immerse yourself in their content. Like, that's what I was doing when I first started. I was in the books, I was on the podcasts, I was watching YouTube, I was in the courses. I may have not had people physically around me, but I wish I did. And with Twitter, you can do that. Like, more than anything, it's the best place to be around other people, and like, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, hands down. So start spending time. Guess what? I spend time with Alex Hormozy. How? Through his content. And now I adopt his principles with business, and my business is working. Like, I spend time like listening to Dan Coe on a podcast, and like it just becomes part of you. So if you're not sure what direction you should go in, how exactly you should build your person around, like if you don't have a step-by-step formula to make this work, just spend time with people who have the life you want to live and at least somewhat of a business you want to have, and you'll figure it out. Like, it'll happen. You just gotta spend the time.
I love that. That's an amazing way to end this off. And I really agree with sort of building your tribe of mentors. Even if they are not in person with you, you
Mm-hmm.
can just like be obsessed with them. Like you're become these people, and then you sort of add your own personality to it, of course. But I think
Mm-hmm.
first it's important to just kind of dive into everything, adopt their
Yes.
philosophy, experiment with it.
Yeah, 100%. And like, buy their courses, buy their coaching. And like, if you can get closer to them in any way, get in their communities. Like, just being around people. I remember hearing Alex Hormozy, he said something like, I don't remember how much he spent, but it was like, I think he got like 3 coaching calls with this person who's like some master social media person. And I think he spent like 30 to 50 grand per call or something. like per call. He's like maybe even more than that. I don't know. And I was like, is that dumb or is that genius? And you know what? Like, I think it's actually genius because even just being in the presence of people who are where you want to be, even if you're not even taking in their direct tactical knowledge, you started you start adopting belief. And I think this is stuff that's not good enough. But like, I'm not gonna get too like woo woo out there, but like just being around the presence of successful people, you start to believe like, oh, this is actually possible. Like I'd be listening to podcasts nonstop when I first started, not just the tactical stuff. But like I was listening to this one podcast called Travel Like a Boss, and it was this dude who was like started an e-commerce business, and now he's in Thailand, like doing the thing. And I'm like, this guy's living the life I want to live, and he's interviewing people who are also doing this. I'm gonna hang around them through a podcast,
Hmm.
like dream, and like it just spending time around people, you just start shaking these limiting beliefs about like what you can
Yep.
do in life. And so beyond the tactics and stuff like that, just spending time with those kinds of people, um, yeah, it changes you. It just it makes your chances of succeeding like 1,000 times better.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for coming on, Brandon.
Yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. We gotta do this again sometime.